No one can outrun their destiny. This is the eloquent slogan of the movie Apocalypto, and which was released in December 2006. The author of the idea, director, producer, co-writer, assistant cameraman, and all lighting technicians was the ubiquitous Mel Gibson, who even during the filming of the sensational film, The Passion of the Christ, set himself the goal of making more noise. On the set he talked to screenwriter Farhad Safinia, and outlined to him the idea of the upcoming project, where the main was thesis, that Mel wants to shake up cinema, and the genre. Farhad, listening to this stream of thought of the idea generator, he agreed to write the script for the film. He also suggested telling the story of Maya. Gibson himself was inclined to show us in the frame the Aztecs and their life and existence. But then after studying the materials, Mel agreed and decided that it would be Maya. More Gibson declined invitation of star actors, and their subsequent grooming treatment of the plaster to create the desired cinematic image. He decided to cast actors who were direct descendants of the Maya, on the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico, and also in Guatemala and Belize. Although the actors sound too loud, many of them had no acting experience at all before Apocalypto, and so the decision to film this motley crew was, to put it mildly, bold. But Gibson in his authority decided not to look for easy ways, and yes, listing all of Mel's positions in the film, I forgot to name one more. He is the founder and owner of the studio Icon Production, which was involved in filming Apocalypto. Gibson's decisions were not questioned. The boss rules. The cast of natives allowed Gibson to use Matan as the only spoken language in the film. Many of the newly minted actors did not know English at all. That's why translators were especially in demand on the set, although Gibson managed to communicate with them in the universal language of gestures, so and conveyed to them the necessary information. Principal photography took place in Mexico and Guatemala, where the weather made its own adjustments. Due to hurricanes in Mexico followed by heavy rains and flooding, filming was postponed, even had to postpone the premiere of the film from August to December. By the way, the film crew voluntarily helped locals fight the consequences of a terrible hurricane and flood, and it's all at the studio's expense. A special item in the budget expenditure was the maintenance of a huge number of makeup artists and costume designers. Gibson invited those with whom he had previously worked in the films Braveheart, The Patriot, and The Passion of the Christ. They had so much work that I wouldn't be surprised if they had nightmares at night. These sweet faces of the ancient Maya, which they put on the conveyor belt, designing every day all these cuts, scars, pads, inserts, tattoos, wigs, false ears in the form of silicone pads. Yes, there were actors who had their size increased to create a particularly big-eared version of Maya. Hundreds of costumes were hand-sewn, each of which was fully in keeping with the era, and was individually tailored to the actor's dimensions. All the extras were brand new. The Maya household items were also created by hand. It would seem easier to visit some museum of antiquities and rent there, but the author's view and flight of thought required maximum decoration to create the right atmosphere in the frame. As the authors of the film claim, no animals were harmed during the filming. We can believe them, because for the scenes of animal killings there was a special order for stuffed animals of the ancient jungle, who were created by teams of craftsmen from Los Angeles and Dallas. Exclusive ready-made carcasses were delivered to the shooting. The film was shot on the then innovative next-generation action camera Genesis, which allowed the film's action scenes to be shot with the sharpest and brightest footage. The film's director of photography was Dean Semler, who faced a number of problems, but did not waver, and accepted the trials of the jungle and the difficulties lurking in them. Yes, they used artificial lighting during filming, but only in cases of extreme necessity, and so Semler used the gifts of nature, rays of sun that penetrated through the abundant thickets and fell on the foliage, conveying a wide range of colors. But such a cool picture could only be obtained at a certain time. Therefore the film crew was constrained by time constraints. So the tapir run took 4 days to film, and this is a scene that takes up about 2 minutes in editing. The main role, Jaguar Paw, was played by the descendant of Comanches, Rudy Youngblood. He has American citizenship and he was born in the north of Mexico, far from the southern jungle, but Gibson saw in him the same swift-footed and tenacious Maya scenery of the village of the father of the Jaguar Paw of the Flint Sky, created in the wilds near the city of Catemaco. Here the authors of the film have honored us with Santa Barbara, an intimate version of the ancient Maya, an Indian, blunted who has problems with his male part, and he becomes an object of ridicule and the whole tribe's teasing. His wife's worried mother demands grandchildren. It should be noted that they picked the name of the insolvent man sufferer to suit Gibson called the dialogue between Flint Sky's father and Jaguar's Paw's son the key one in the plot of the film. After all, the main thing in the film was fear, and the possibility of overcoming it. Mel said that the fight against one's fears is relevant for all of us, and the ancient Maya are no exception. Scene of an attack on a village by thugs from another tribe. In the script they were called human hunters. We filmed it over 3 days, dividing it into several stages. Separately, the epic of saving the family of the Jaguar Paw, scene with burning scenery, prisoners and dead, well, and actually fights without rules, with all the unsightly cruelty. The film's fight choreography was done by the experienced Mick Rogers, a man of his own for Gibson. He was involved in staging action scenes in his films, Braveheart, Patriot, Ransom, Payback. The R rating allowed Gibson to add some brutality to the frame, and make the fight disgustingly vivid. The presence of colorful natives allowed us to save significantly on makeup, because they weren't much different from their ancestors. Yes, they have partially joined modern civilization, but even after thousands of years they continued to honor the traditions of their ancestors. This allowed us to add a special atmosphere to the frame, as for example in the scene with the priest narrator without an arm. An Indian named Midalai, he was played by Gerardo Tarchina, who immediately disliked the Jaguar Paw, appeared in the image of an ancient asshole. Vile, mean and bloodthirsty. Flint Sky's murder scene was moved, in the original script. The Midalai killed him during the process of a shackled hike through the jungle. The trip home with the prisoners in the conditions of filming in different locations became a test for the film crew. Someone was bitten by local aggressive insects, someone twisted their ankle, someone got sunstroke. Well, the most extreme thing was crossing the river. The actors were tied with ropes on both sides of the turbulent rivers, in close-ups. The cameraman in the boat together with the ubiquitous Mel was in the spray of water and filmed the emotions of really tired men, which Gibson organized endurance competitions. Jaguar Paw wife and online pit treatment of a wounded child. The method was taken from archival sources. The authors studied the inventory of years and other medical bullets of antiquity. In general, somewhere we found and decided to add medicine to the frame from Maya. Raul Trujillo, who played Zero Wolf, the tall leader of the group of hunters. Raul had more than enough acting experience. In makeup and with a grimace of anger, Raul appeared in the image of someone who is better not to be caught in a dark alley. The authors highlighted Raul's performance and clear conformity to the image of a ruthless villain, who with just one glance is capable of driving an opponent into the hot earth Maya. Farhad Safinia read about various diseases that completely wiped out villages and tribes in ancient times, and decided to add a scene to the plot. Mysteriously, only one little girl survived from the whole tribe. The solution was that the girl turned out to be an oracle, and predicted not only the wrinkled schizophrenic poking a child with a stick, but also to everyone else, and everything came true, including rebirth from the mud when the paw got out of the swamp black as a jaguar, and dealt with the pursuers. So the authors decided to add mysticism and the supernatural into the frame. These are after all the ancient Maya with their beliefs and customs. Since Gibson abandoned the graphic solutions near Veracruz, a Maya city was built. Tom Sanders was brought in for this, and he and a team of 120 people made history, creating all these huts, pyramids, limestone quarries, and other ancient structures. According to various sources, it took from 2 to 3.5 months of continuous work in the Mexican heat to create. 800 extras were used in the sacrifice scene, each of which was processed by makeup artists and costume designers, even those who were on the 25th plane and were in the frame at the size of an annoying mosquito in the jungles of Mexico. Here Gibson got it right, and tried to saturate the frame as much as possible, immersing the viewer in the atmosphere of the ancient city and its inhabitants. The editing of the frame was full of variety, dances of the natives, heads of the unfortunate strung up like on a skewer, near which the locals drilled the newly arrived prey with an unkind look. Gibson achieved persuasiveness by assuring and instructing the extras on how and where to look in the frame, and therefore in order to film a scene lasting 1.5 minutes it sometimes took a whole shooting day. The scene of the execution and the subsequent descent of the body was rehearsed with stuntmen. Wonder why the mannequins were left without heads. They were falling down. Makeup of the rogue high priest played by Fernando Hernandez. Took 3 hours of painstaking work makeup artist, but it was worth it. The look of the decorative pepper shaker with exotic seasoning turned out really good. According to the scriptwriter's idea, the priest and his minions knew perfectly well about the natural phenomenon, solar eclipse, and cleverly used it for their own purposes during the sacrifice. Yes, you are right, nothing changes. And then those in power shamelessly deceived the people, filmed a bloody version of the Maya Olympics, where living people are the target, and the award is not an Olympic gold medal, but a dead painted body. The escape from the pursuers was filled with eventful for the audience, but also for the film crew, because after the flood they changed filming locations. A pit of death with a sad legacy of survival games, where there were hundreds of mannequins designed in a chopped form, and smeared with paint by artists and makeup artists. The swarm of flies flying around was added during editing. The piercing slow-mo frame, the running of the jaguar paw from the jaguar. But here is the most interesting thing, as Mel Gibson claims, it is not an editing overlay and splicing, but Jaguar really ran after Rudy Youngblood. The solution was that the Jaguar had a rope attached to it that prevented it from getting close to Rudy. So after filming several takes, Gibson got that epic shot. Night shooting with a minimum of artificial lighting created a kind of presence effect, with an oppressive atmosphere, dark and creepy. Run paw run jaguar, jump from a waterfall, and here one of the few editing tricks is used. In fact, the jump was filmed from the roof of a 15-story building in Veracruz. Gibson, to inspire the team, jumped first with a safety rope, but Rudy jumped as many as 10 times. Why? Gibson didn't like the way he jumped, and so Rudy had to master a new profession, stuntman jumper. Youngblood tried it on himself. What is movie fake dirt? As the actor admitted, it's a disgusting thing. And with Gibson's perfectionism and 150 takes, the episode turned into a mud torture for Rudy. The mortal battle with the hated Middle Eye turned out to be very brief, and her Gibson completely described by seconds. Death of a hero. Raul Trujillo, in a Gibson displayed symbolism. Jaguar paw lured the bloody viceroy into a beast trap. In the original version of the script, the wife and child died, but after rethinking the plot they decided to abandon from tragedy and save them live. It was not for nothing that the jaguar paw was so worried and ran to his trembling family. Farhad Safinia said that the scene on the shore was supposed to show the first meeting between the arriving Spaniards and the Maya, but Gibson left the meeting unsaid, not showing how they dealt with the pursuers of the jaguar paw, and removing the meeting of the hero Rudy and his family with the Spaniards. The rights to distribute the film were bought by the company Buena Vista Pictures, which at that time belonged to the Disney studio. As a result, in the cinemas, the film, with a budget of 40 million greenbacks, collected 120.5 million, taking 45th place in the world box office in 2006. This is clearly less than the studio bosses expected. As the press ironically noted at the time, Gibson and his Maya were no competition to Jack Sparrow and the film Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Man's Chest, which grossed over $1 billion at the box office. Then historians took Gibson seriously and tore his production to shreds. The main complaint was the cruelty of the Maya shown in the frame, which portrayed them as merciless savages. Many facts were distorted, to the point of pain, in the hearts and minds of historians who protested against Gibson. A complaint was even filed against Mel, a certain community of Indian communities, for distortion of historical facts and discrimination against the great Maya culture. What's interesting about Mexico itself is that there were a lot of spectators. The attendance record was even broken when they overtook the longtime leader Titanic Cameron. While 82% of Mexicans called the film good, other viewers also supported Mel Gibson, giving the film positive reviews and very high ratings, which Apocalypto still receives to this day.